Alright, what's going on, everyone? So, I'm back from my Hunter x Hunter-esque hiatus, my ridiculously long training arc in the time chamber. Um, this isn't really the pacing I want to do for videos. So, just so you guys know, this isn't a regular thing. Some stuff came up, had to handle it, so we handled it. As we do, we stay taking dubs around here. And I want to make sure that you guys understand that, but, to kind of jump into the meat of this video, as you saw in the thumbnail, we're going to be talking about Yuta. We're going to be talking about, like, a proper GOAT today. And I actually think that Yuta is heavily downplayed a lot of times, to the point where I felt like I really needed to jump in, especially in the recent chapters. I feel like it's insane that people still downplay him. It's crazy to me. So, from here, I guess the best place to start, we want to talk about, I guess, what version we're using here. First and foremost, I want to talk about current Yuta, even though he is arguably nerfed. In fact, I don't even think it's arguable. As we know, he's very, very dependent on Rika. And we know that the Rika he has now is the remnants of the original. And for those that don't know, Rika is like the childhood friend slash like future ship or whatever for Yuta that was basically cursed into being his unholy companion forever, which I actually think was a very interesting plotline, because he did break that, and now he's just working with the remnants of her. And despite the fact that he is nerfed, because the main source of his insane power has been all but, cast away, he's still stated to be second only to Gojo right now. However, I still think this is downplay. And part of the reason is that Yuta, let's go over the statements first. Yuta is actually stated to have boundless cursed energy, and I actually do think this is somewhat hyperbolic, and the people that do like Yuta take this out of context. And for those of you who've been debating, or the versus battle community at all, you hear boundless, you start thinking outerversal, omnipotent. No, we ain't talking about all that yet. Let's not get into all that craziness. But Yuta having boundless cursed energy, I would say is actually somewhat consistent with what we've seen. Generally speaking, we don't see Yuta get worn out too much. We don't see upper limits to his stamina. We don't see very much of anything like that, fatigue related, and we see him use some pretty big moves. For one, his reverse curse technique. As we know, reverse curse technique, one, is very difficult to use. We also know that reverse curse technique is, in fact, one of the most draining abilities that can be used. And this is interesting because all the people that can use it effectively are either insane masters of it, on top of having like insane cursed energy reserves. Obviously Gojo, who's basically got limitless cursed energy. Sukuna, who is the king of curses. His scaling's pretty obvious, it's everywhere. You can go see any of my other videos to look into that. But I will say, in Yuta's case, he's another insane cursed energy user, and what we see is him essentially just having quote-unquote boundless cursed energy. And I do think that speaks to an insane reserve. I don't actually think it's infinite or, anything like that, because he has said that he can run out. That's my biggest contention with this, is that he himself thinks he can run out of cursed energy. So I think it's an insanely deep well, but not infinitely so. So I wanted to clear that up first, but the statement itself, along with his feats, do seem to show that he is just insane. And he's on that level. He's already on that level with, 15 Finger Sukuna, the strongest version we've seen so far, and Gojo. So we already know he's there off one or two statements and some feats. Now, further moving from this, we've seen Yuta actually fight some of the new god tiers. The Golden Age sorcerer, the Sky Girl, was a great example. Her spatial manipulation curse technique is one of the strongest we've ever seen in the series, and we can go over that more in probably a separate video, just because I don't want to make this one too long. But I will say, in that one, you see a lot of craziness. Like, obviously we know that with curse techniques there's balances, right? And with the Sky Girl, there doesn't seem to be much of a balance at all to very overt spatial manipulation, almost on par with Gojo's very basic ones. Red and blue, obviously, and definitely nothing on par with, like, purple or the neutral limitless or anything. However, the reason this is so important is Yuta can copy this, and he barely understands the technique. The reason this is so important is we know that when you are copying abilities, obviously you're not a master of them like Gojo is. We know that Gojo is, in fact, one of probably the prodigy among prodigies in the Gojo clan, because not only has he mastered these techniques better than arguably any of them, in fact, as far as we know, he is the best at Six Eyes and Limitless, he's also further developed them. So that being said, that would mean that Yuta himself would be prodigious in the same way, being able to master techniques after seeing them once in combat. We see this with curse speech users, but nobody puts respect on curse speech. However, this is something that Yuta mastered after seeing basically once, right? He then masters something that is in the same category, in fact, the exact same category and type as Gojo's Limitless. So the arguments that he can't copy that, they're kind of out the window. I think there is, in fact, a statement that Yuta has no, I know for a fact. I'll put that on screen for you guys. There is a statement that Yuta can copy any ability without limit. And I think this isn't hyperbole. I think he's demonstrated it, especially now, being able to copy the Sky Girl's overt spatial manipulation. So, yeah, he can absolutely copy that. Moving from that, even, with Six Eyes, it's arguable that he might be able to copy it if he understood it. I think the biggest thing stopping Yuta from copying that is the fact that it's very hard to use Six Eyes, to even keep it active, or to understand it. Gojo's implied before that even Limitless is very, very hard to understand and use because it's complicated. And the main reason that I don't think Yuta would want to have to copy them, even though he could, is just because it'd be very hard to use without mastering both of them, right? And without mastering both of them, these abilities not only could be potentially just worthless to him, you know, compared to the rest of his arsenal of abilities, but they could actually be harmful to him. As some of you may know, Gojo does state that he could actually hurt himself during the flashback arc, right, with these abilities. And that's actually very true. He could hurt himself with a lot of these abilities because they're reality warping, like spatial manipulation. If he were to accidentally shoot a hollow purple at himself, he'd erase himself. There's no getting around that, right? Similarly, if you were to have Yuta compared to him, as far as feats, or let's not even use feats. Let's look at the utility of his ability, right? Being copy. Now, with copy, he can have pretty much any ability that would be a hard counter to someone like Gojo. In this case, it's possible that he would be able to get things basically to hold Gojo in place or turn off his cursed abilities. This is something that I've seen theorized about a lot, that he might in fact be able to get the cursed ability of the Angel. And for those of you that don't know, the Angel is actually the cursed user who's able to turn off cursed abilities. If Yuta were to actually get this, he would be unquestionably above Gojo in any engagement they would have. The fact of the matter is, if Yuta were to get that ability, he would be the strongest, most dangerous thing in this verse. And it's looking like they're going to interact with each other. Yuta just got his 200 points. He took out the big bads, all of them, by the way. All of them. This man ran a gauntlet against the strongest people in his area of the Culling games. Let's keep that on lock. And we should also note that he intends to meet back up with Megami, and we know Megami was just abducted, if you want to call it, by the Angel. So we know that from here, they're likely to interact. It's likely that Yuta's going to go find Yuji and Megami, and then try from there to probably copy that Angel Girl's ability if she wants to combat them in any way. He might just be smart enough to copy it. In fact, no, he is absolutely smart enough to copy that ability just to make sure he has it in his back pocket in case he needs it. Which, Obviously, he does think he's going to need things like that because Yuji has told him, yeah, I think I'm going to have to rely on you if Sukuna gets loose. And he's already fairly confident he can. And I think this is actually another great statement for Mr. Yuta here. Because Yuji has seen firsthand and knows better than anyone exactly how strong Sukuna is. And I'm kind of messing around with this one a little bit, but Yuji had to ask Gojo if he could beat Sukuna after watching him beat Sukuna. And with Yuta, right after he saw basically the greatest demonstrations of Sukuna's power in the entire verse thus far, he looked at Yuta and said, yeah, I think you can do it. I think you can take out the Sukuna I just saw, right? Which I think is actually an insane statement. So, that being said, we have someone who is, again, compared to the strongest Sukuna we've seen, and Yuji doesn't seem to have any qualms about saying, yeah, Yuta, I think you're above him. Yuji being the authority on how strong Sukuna currently is, which I think that's a great statement for him. On top of the feats we've seen, apparently the cursed energy output of Cannon Head, the little grease, I don't even know what to say about the dude, the guy who shot lasers out of his hair. I think that's ridiculous enough for everyone to understand how dumb that was. Now, in this case, his cursed energy output was basically scaled a few times to that of the high tiers in the verse, probably higher than what 15 Finger Sukuna was putting out. Probably not as much as Gojo, because Gojo effectively just can't run out of cursed energy. So he's pretty much set. He's not getting passed up in that regard. However, all of this is just to say that Yuta is in this category. Yuta's taking on opponents who are in the God tier category. He's being compared to the God tiers, Gojo. He's basically being told that he should be able to compete with the strongest form of Sukuna we've seen by the authority on Sukuna's power. And the author also makes quite a few statements saying, yeah, he's second only to Gojo, or the boundless cursed energy, or copying abilities with no limit. These things would definitely say that he is up there with all of them. And if you wanted to get into the specifics of how this fight would go, we would be looking at Gojo, as of right now. Gojo would actually... No, I'm going to save that for another video. Alright, so I think that's everything I want to cover today. This is going to be a very short video. If you guys really like this one, I'll do a proper, versus battle of how this fight would actually go down. As far as right now, most of what I'm saying is that his scaling, his abilities, they would absolutely just put him above Gojo right now. He would beat Gojo in a fight. As far as I'm concerned, if you guys want me to really get into detail and really think on this more, go into specifics, we can do that. Just let me know in the comments, and we'll make it happen. But yeah, other than that, guys, be safe. Take it easy.